Yay, we did it. So, hello. I'm
Hey,
psychic medium Samantha Fay here with Mr. Dave Scatcherd. Did I say that right?
you got it right.
Perfect. Well, so I'm really excited about this. I know that we have been planning this for how long now?
I know it's been a
Probably
couple
next
months.
week. Yeah, it's been fun. I'm glad we're here. First of all, I'd absolutely love for you to just kind of introduce yourself and share what your journey is, and maybe even a little bit about what you've been doing these last couple weeks, because that's pretty exciting as well.
Yeah, well, I'm done playing hockey. I'm retired from professional hockey, and my passion is helping people and businesses, and um, basically allowing people, businesses, and athletes to really reach their potential. And I think that we all have a lot of unlocked or locked potential that needs to be unlocked, and sometimes that just takes pushing some buttons and doing a few technical things to really open us up to be able to be the best versions of ourselves that we can be.
Nice.
So yeah, that's my passion, and that's what I've been doing. And the last couple of weeks, I've been speaking with the National Hockey League and working on some speaking training and getting ready to kind of take my story out on the road and really share it with people I care about.
So, what is your story? What is like the elevator speech or the cliff notes of your story, so that people who are not familiar with your journey can understand a little bit more about why we're here right now doing this?
Yeah, well, it depends which journey. I really feel like God has put me through the highs and the lows for a reason. And, I was blessed to play hockey in the National Hockey League from 97 to 2011. So that was sort of my first phase of my journey. From 2011 to about 2014, 15, I was really struggling with my health and my concussion symptoms. I had a lot of head trauma. I had some microhemorrhaging in my brain. I had difficulty thinking, and I had no memory. I was on Alzheimer's medication. I had difficulty exercising, and I really went through hell. I felt like a small percentage of the man that I used to be, a professional athlete, and I felt like I was not a great father and not a great husband because I was struggling so much just trying to stay alive. And that led me to seeking any help and praying daily for help and guidance and healing. And that led me to sort of the third phase of my life, which was just this wild roller coaster ride that took me all around the world, dealing with some of the most amazing human beings on earth, and tapping into a lot of things that aren't garden variety things. And that's what brings me to you.
Well, I love that, and I love that you also incorporated like the epic journey, right? It's the hero's journey of the fall, the crash, back up to the rebirth, essentially. And I've got to be honest. So after we connected last time we were in Florida for that little business seminar that we were doing, I Google searched your name for YouTube, because I was like, I wonder what kind of hockey. I'm also going to be honest, not a big hockey fan, never have been. So I'm like, what's this hockey about? And so the videos that I saw on YouTube of you, like clips of you playing and stuff, I'm like, that is not the guy that I know. That is not the guy that I have met. These are like two different guys. And so it's been interesting for me as far as getting to know you at this part of your journey, because I don't even really have an idea of who is the Dave that you were when you were playing hockey. And I know for myself and my journey, the person that I was even 5, 6 years ago, completely different, like polar opposite people. And I know that my own willingness to dive into getting to know myself as spirit is the catalyst of that. It's a catalyst of this massive transformation. And I think that was one of the things that kind of like drew us together as magnets because we had that in common. So I guess my question for you is, what was it, or what was the catalyst for you that kind of shifted your direction? I know that you said that you were just seeking the healing and anything but the pain, essentially. I know that was what it was for me, is like anything but the pain.
Right.
What was it that really brought you out of that brought you back into this, like this third phase of, I want something different, I want something more?
It was a matter of necessity. I'd gotten to a place where I just knew that I couldn't keep living my life in this pain, and the medicine wasn't working. The Alzheimer's medicine didn't help. The pain pills I was on didn't help. The alcohol I was putting myself to sleep with every night didn't help. And I literally just got down on my knees and I just said, God, if you're out there, I'm like, I need some help right now. And I can't keep going like this for another 50 years of my life. I got in touch with a life coach that recommended that I go to this certain seminar, and I went to the seminar, and some of the techniques that we were doing in this leadership seminar were really advanced and really powerful. And I'd done this process, and maybe this will help people out there that are listening to you. I did this process where I went and I looked at where I was as a 36-year-old man, and I was retired, and I had money in the bank, and I had a beautiful wife and healthy little babies at home, and I had a lot going for me, but yet I didn't feel anything. And then, like, happy, sad, anything, I was just in pain. And then when I looked at where purest version of my soul is what they had us look at. And that's kind of going deep right away. Was that when I was a 10-year-old boy? Was that when I was 8? Was that when I was 7, 6? And the vision that I got was, as a 5-year-old boy, my dad was holding me in his arms, and I had my arms out like Superman, and I had a Superman cape on. And we were at a campground, and I was a little boy, and I hadn't really been in trouble yet. I hadn't been yelled at or spanked or had anybody treat me wrong. Everything was perfect. I loved animals. I loved human beings. And then I looked at where I was as a 36-year-old man, and I couldn't see any of that boy in the man that I was, and it terrified me. It broke my heart. I said, what the hell? Where's David, little David Scatcherd, right? And I became this other gladiator to go do my job and to protect my heart, my soul. And, the first time I got in trouble, the first time somebody lied to me, the first time somebody spanked me, the first time the teacher gave me trouble, the first time you get grounded, the first time you get your heart broken. Each of those, I felt like I stacked armor around my heart and my soul because it hurt so much. I was just hypersensitive. I really feel like I've been empathic since I was a little boy. I always talked to God. I always felt what people were feeling. But then as the real world started to happen to me, I had to start covering it up because it was so painful to me. And you can imagine leaving home at 15 or 16 and dealing with all the things I dealt with at 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, trying to do my job, and then me having to start to fight people, which is completely against, I think, my true soul. Part of my job was I had to stick up for players and fight. And so here my little heart is just buried under all this armor, and I'd go do my job every night, and I did it really well. And I got paid for it. I realized my dreams, and trust me, it wasn't all bad. It was amazing. All the greatest things in my life I owe to hockey, but I didn't know how to take that armor off, or to switch hats, so I was just living in there. And I lived in there for 15 years pro hockey. And then when I got injured, I was not playing anymore. I was retired. The doctors wouldn't let me play anymore. And I was lugging this armor around with me everywhere that I went. And it was getting exhausted and heavy and mentally draining, and plus my injuries. So I literally had no connection to anything because I had so much armor around my whole being.
Mm-hmm.
What saved me and what actually tuned me in and tuned me up was that I started ripping off these layers. And imagine an onion just peeling layers and layers back. But this wasn't like an onion. This was like concrete and metal and all these things that would protect me. And I just started ripping them off. And everyone in the seminar is done like 20 minutes before me. I'm in the back corner of the room crying and screaming and getting it all out. And I knew that little David was in there somewhere. And I had to go really, really, really deep. And I was terrified that he was going to die. And I pictured like the World Trade Center. I played in New York when the World Trade Center crashed, and we actually went to Ground Zero. And I just imagined this little boy underneath all this rubble, and I couldn't get to him. And I was just freaking out. And I'm just like, I'll save you, little buddy. And I finally got down to him, and it's just this little beautiful angel, just like glowing and smiling and radiating just pure love. And I held him in my arms, and I just said, you know what? I'm sorry I did that to you. I was trying to protect you. You wouldn't have survived what I had just had to go do for the last 20 years of my life. But I said, I don't need to wear all that armor anymore. I'm not playing anymore. Nobody's going to take my job. Nobody's going to hurt me. No coaches are going to send me down to the minors. Nobody's going to yell at me. And you're going to lead my life. And I'm going to let you be up there. And I don't care if I get hurt again. And I'm going to be naked and vulnerable, and the world's going to feel my heart. And I literally dropped to my knees because what I got blasted with was so powerful that I just literally, I'm shaking now as I'm talking, because I got hit with everything that I had tuned out because of all the filters and all the armor that I had around myself for years, and I got blasted with it. And it literally felt like the weight of the world was lifted off me. It felt like I was free, that I could breathe again. It felt like I was born again. I literally felt like I was like a grown man, and I was like naked and wet, and like I literally had become born again. And I knew that my life was going to change in a big way just by being free of trying to be a tough guy and trying to be macho and not telling people when I'm hurt or when I'm scared. And literally, my life changed that day. I started to heal. And I knew God spoke to me that day, and he said, if you spend time with me every day, he said, I'll get you back to where you were or even higher. And that's where my meditation comes in. And that's why I've just been addicted to meditation for like the last 2.5, 3 years. I do it every single day. And it's a place for me to get back to connection and alignment and to feel my, my true self and how God built me. And I feel like a lot of us have masks and a lot of us have armor. And clients that I coach, one of the first things I try to do is to try to allow them to take it all off and to get real and to get raw, like your title says.
Yes. I know you just like dove in head first, and really, I feel like what you're sharing with us, even in this small, lighthearted community that we have, and even the people or the group of people that are going to actually tune in and watching this, it's such an honor to actually hear you share that story and to hear what it is, because as we see hockey players or we see MMA fighters or we see these men and even women doing these extraordinarily aggressive sports, and wondering what part, I watch it and I wonder like what part of them is that driving force that says that's what I want to do. I want to inflict pain, or I want to cause harm in somebody else, or I want to willingly walk myself into harm. And what is that trigger, and what is that experience like to know that that's like what you're going to be doing as you go onto the ice?
Well, it's really interesting because I know some of those people, and actually me, myself, I rarely fought for myself. It would be, most of my fights would be when somebody would do something to a teammate of mine that wasn't above board and it wasn't fair. And we sort of in the NHL at that time, when a few years ago it was a little tougher, like guys would sort of police themselves, and it'd be like a family member of yours getting picked on at school. I guarantee you that you'd step up and you'd say something or that you'd do something. And it doesn't necessarily mean that I want to inflict pain on them. It means that I want them to stop inflicting pain on my family members or my teammates. Okay. So I was able to go there pretty easily because if someone was going to hurt my kid right now, I'd do anything to stop it. And that's how I felt when I played. But the thing that when it starts to happen over and over and over again, you know, and you start to defend yourself, then you almost feel like you're going to be getting attacked from like somebody somewhere at some time, especially in my job where if I didn't do my job, see you later, there's only 7,000 people that have, in the history of the world have ever played in the National Hockey League. Out of a billion.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I know. It's a weird number, right? You'd think it'd be more than that, but yeah. It's not. And to be part of that group, there was no way in hell that I was going to let my guard down and let anybody else step in and take my spot. I had to be on every day. I couldn't take days off. I was a warrior. And there's a way to do it. Here's what I'm loving as a coach is there's a way to do this in life and in business where you can suit up, you can put the armor on, you can go in, you can hammer out the deal, and then you can go home and you can take it off, and then you can be in your own skin again. But I guarantee you that as your business is growing, there's been times where you've had to like suit up and you're not really used to doing that, and it's scary, and you're like, man, I've never done this before. Well, let's grab that courage and let's put it on. Well, that's a small example about what like we had to do as real life gladiators, and you know, and there's a way and I'm still learning it, but I'm getting much better, and that's switching hats. So I can have my dad hat on, I could have my husband hat on, I could have my, you know, coaching hat on, I can have my pro athlete, win at all costs, competitive hat on, and then I can have let's go, connect, heal, grow, and get connected with love and light, and I can live in that space too. So to be able to do that is really masterful, and I'm getting better at it, but I'm still learning. And just the awareness that that's something that we can all do, I think, is huge, because I thought there was only one way, and I had to run through that wall. Mm-hmm. I remember Tony Robbins actually told me to my face, he said, gladiators can get a lot done, but he goes, a wizard can get done more with his pinky than a gladiator could get done in his lifetime. And I thought, wow. And Tony's a big dude. And I'm like, okay, so what haven't I learned, and what can I learn to add another, you know, arrow to my quiver and have more weaponry where, you know, tactical and finesse and skill and grace, and use it all in a way that is like super powerful. So, you know, that's kind of the phase I'm in right now. I really feel proud of myself at how far along I've come in such a short time. I know it's been a couple of years, but from where I was to where I am now, you know, I'm proud, and my faith, I just know that it's right. So my faith has allowed me to stick with it, and like, you know, trust. Right. Trusting's a hard thing.
Oh yeah, trust has been an absolute key player for me, especially in the last week. It's been a main theme of every single day. I've learned to really enjoy the dance with trust, though, because trust it's so much of a free fall, especially when you're talking about working with your guides or your angels or the path that goes out before you or whatever it is. It's such an interesting feeling and expression of that free fall, because there's nothing to be more scary and more exhilarating than getting a message from my guides and just being like, they're like, shut up, Samantha, you don't know, so you're just going to have to trust. And maybe they say it a little bit nicer, but sometimes I hear my guides talk to me like I would talk to myself. So yeah, it's a beautiful thing. Is in your coaching practice now, when you're working with people who, or when you're working with young boys, or when you're working with people who have aspirations of being a professional hockey player, how do you help them integrate those pieces of the softness that you have found within yourself, as well as the hardness and the exterior layers of the gladiator? How do you kind of coach them through integrating as they're growing into it?
It's tough because a lot of them are in that growth phase where they have to get stronger physically and mentally. So they need to be getting stronger in the gym to be able to compete against men. And they're having to not be the biggest fish in the sea anymore. You know what I mean? They've come from these small towns where they're the best players and life is easy. And now they're going to colleges and professional teams, and they're by far not the best. So then what happens, right? Mm-hmm. So we have to turn that on and program the brain to be able to go to places that it hasn't been, as far as capacity goes, as far as pushing yourself to a new limit and expanding. But I'm sure in your business, you've had to expand emotionally and mentally and connectively more too, right? So there's a great similarity to that. Now, how do I bring them back into like non-gladiator mode? There's practices, there's trust, there's like, when they're opening to me and they're telling me about their week and what they'd like to work on, and there's no filter, and they just say, listen, I'm really struggling with, this player or a friend of mine or my girlfriend or coach, or, I'm confused. I find that like a real mature thing because they're not trying to pretend that life's perfect and that, so I feel like we're dipping in and dipping out and dipping in and dipping out. And as long as we can keep coming back to center, I feel like they can keep expanding into that strength mode and not get lost in it where, it can tend to happen. I mean, you look at guys like Tiger Woods, and he was locked in and he had nothing else in his life other than golf. And then, his personal life starts to fall apart, and he never had to deal with anything like that before. And it destroyed him. He hasn't been the same since. And I idolized Tiger Woods. I thought he was amazing, but he's one-dimensional.
Yeah.
That's all he did. And then when the wheels fall off, look out, because the other parts haven't been developed yet. So when I'm working with people, I'm looking at all aspects, everything from their relationships to with their girlfriends or families or brothers or sisters. I want to have all those operating at high capacity, but I also want their physical bodies and their nutrition and their sleep and their rest to be operating, as well as like their mental, a lot of them are in school. I want their school, my last client just made the dean's list while he's training hours and hours a day. So, that makes me proud, and it makes me know that we're on the right track. And, it's like I said, it's a balancing act, and it's a juggle. It's like, I use the metaphor of plates and the guy in the circus, and he gets this plate spinning really good. And once it's spinning fast enough, he can jump over to this plate and get that spinning. But then he has to pay some attention back over here, there, and then he can get another plate going. And it's like everything needs attention, but once you get it going and get that rhythm going, you can keep all the plates going and spinning at a high level. So, sorry, I didn't mean to go off on a tangent.
No, I appreciate it, because what you're speaking to is exactly what my life is like right now, as far as being an entrepreneur and offering different programs and still working with individual clients, and also, running a business, having employees, having to deal with tax forms, having to I just got a letter about that I have to do an assessor sort of thing. I'm like, I've never done this before in my life. So now all of a sudden, a new plate has started to spin. And like you said, I feel like if I hadn't been able to expand myself emotionally and energetically and intellectually, there's no way I would know how to do this. And this has been years in the making of dropping plates left and right to figure out how it actually all comes to fruition and how it all starts to unfold beautifully. Yeah. And it's almost like that illusion of what is beauty. It's like beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and at the same time, our society's idea or paradigm around beauty is a complete illusion. It's completely fabricated and made up by mainstream media and however you see it. And I know that when we were talking before coming on here, you were talking about this pretending and how people pretend and all of these layers. And I love that you just dove right in. You're like, this is my core. This is my little Dave. And this is what I love to be and how I love to express myself. And that, I feel like, I know for myself, I crave that. And if I'm spending time around people who aren't willing to pull that out of themselves, I get bored very easily with people. There's like just only so much patience that I have for that unwillingness to dive deep or that pretending. And at the same time, I feel like a lot of the pretending comes from insecurities or not knowing who they are at their own core. So they're not willing to kind of step forward and share what it is.
I feel terrible for our youth and people today because I call it the upside down kingdom. And I really feel like our values are completely upside down about what matters, how you should act, how you should be, how you should look, what you should wear, what you should eat. It's sad. And I know that you know this, like, have you ever met a person, and they might not just be like the typical, whatever Hollywood would consider like a beautiful person, but they're just radiating and you're like, man, that is an amazing person. And they're just comfortable. They're confident. There's no bullshit. Pardon my language. Listen, I might swear, but in order for me to not have filters, I'm not going to try to pretty it up for people. And this is what you see is what you get with me. And it's like our society has programmed us in such a negative way where women have so many insecurities. Men feel like they have to have the nicest car, build the biggest kingdom, have the best job, otherwise they're not worthy. Or they can't tell each other they're hurting, or they can't tell each other they're sad, or they're going through a tough time because they'll be seen as weak. Like, really? Like, that's how God programmed us, to be judgmental of each other and like pick on each other and make fun of each other? Like, I don't know where that came along, but it needs to stop. And it's like, if I have to be one of the guys that steps up and puts, my heart on the line, I'll do that because it kills me to see these people walking around pretending. And it's like so obvious, like, especially when you're like, you've dropped all the filters, you can just feel so much and you're just like tuned in and you're like, this guy's bullshit. Or like, you've seen girls try hard, you know what I mean? And it's so unattractive as a man. But they don't even know any different because they think that that's what they have to do because that's what they saw on the music video or that's what they saw on the movie screen and whatever. And it's sad and it's disgusting. And like, I'm not saying, I've got it all figured out. I don't. And I'm just as bad as everyone else. But at least I have an awareness now of when I do or say or do something that's not me. And it just doesn't feel in alignment. It doesn't feel like true. And then I'll laugh and I'll go, wow, that was weird why I responded like that to that person. That's not me. So at least I'm aware now and I can catch myself and I can kind of get back to center. But I don't know. It's just, especially with the people that you're working with, I just feel like in order for them to tune into like the true capabilities, the filters have to come off. And
I totally agree.
In order for them to get the true message, it can't fit into a certain box. If they have 87 boxes that God or light or energy or universe has to fit into to get to their heart, forget it. It's never going to get there. Drop it, communicate, open up, pray, ask for help, and see what happens. Get out of the way. It's trying to get to you. Your prayers are trying to be answered, but we get in our own way so often that we block it. And I was guilty of that so many times. I'm just starting to figure it out now that I can just get the heck out of the way. The gifts are coming.
Yeah. My main block was blame. Blame. I wanted to blame everything on not me as to the reason I was an alcoholic, as to the reason I was just a cold-hearted bitch for a while. I had one boyfriend, can't believe I'm about to say this, but I had one boyfriend tell me that I had like a poisonous moat around the castle of my heart. Granted, he was also a lyricist, so like, I know, I'm like, that's so poetic, and you're an asshole. But there's so much truth because I feel like for me, my as you're saying, your gladiator was on the exterior, your walls were on the exterior, and please just excuse this camera thing because I don't know why it keeps freezing. But for me, it was all around my heart and my heart and my heart over and over and over again. Every time I was rejected by my mother, every time I was rejected by my stepmother, every time I was rejected from the kid down the block. And as a sensitive person, even being little, I didn't realize that people didn't experience life or experience feelings the way that I did. I assumed that everybody else felt the same way. They experienced the same sort of like tension when they'd go into a room or whatever it was. And I never understood that my way of processing emotions was to literally absorb everybody's bullshit, soak it into my body, and then try to unravel and figure out what was wrong with me. And that's where so much of my own self-deprecating patterns came from, because it was like, there wasn't anything wrong with me. I just didn't know how my internal landscape worked. I didn't know how my emotions worked. And so alcohol was the answer. It was like, oh, this will make it all go away. And it'll all be so easy when I can be numb. And then alcohol itself became this massive, massive problem. And so it's interesting to see how, you know, we numb these things within ourselves. And for me, my journey to awakening came from some just like mass messages from my guides, and where it's like I had to stop or my life was going to be ruined. And it got close multiple times. The amount of times I've hit my own rock bottom is like more times than I can count, because I don't even want to admit that it took me that many times to be able to wake up and go, oh my God, like I'm not on track.
Well, it's funny that you mention alcohol, because like as we're numbing, we're actually tuning out of all the things that we actually need, right? I feel like it takes away that sensitivity to everything else that's good and love and light. So it's actually a blocker, but it's like a temporary Band-Aid over a gunshot wound. Like it's just not going to do the job. It's not going to stop the bleeding, you know? And I went there too with my concussion issues. My headaches were so bad for so many years that the only thing that would sort of temporarily take them away is if I drank before I went to bed and I could sleep. But then I'd wake up with a headache, and who knows if that was from the concussion or from the rum or the Crown Royal or whatever the heck it was I was drinking, right? So isn't it funny how we try to do what like will temporarily fix it, but it's not. Like the truth is like a little deeper, and the truth is like in dropping the shit and getting real and being honest and like being vulnerable. And here's another part about being vulnerable. As you were talking, like I was thinking,
tell me about it, Dave.
I'm going to. No, but I was thinking like when I got vulnerable and like let David lead, I really felt like I was just going to be getting picked off and people were going to be gunning for me and I was going to take some big shots. And the funny thing was that the only thing that came back to me was love and light. It was like what I was putting out into the universe was just coming back to me like 100-fold. My healing started to happen really fast. I was having like miracles just over and over and over again. I'm like, wow, my memory's coming back. Oh, my headaches are going away. Oh, I had this thing pop behind my left eye, and this whole red thing drains down my neck, and the headache on my left side completely just went away. And it was like an emotional block that just kind of like let go. It was a physical reaction, but like, I mean, that was stuck there for years. And the doctor was like, listen, you're just going to have to learn how to deal with it. This medicine will help you. And like, they don't know any different. They're not trained in this stuff. And it's like, I'm just grateful to God and to everyone who supported me. And my wife is a rock star, and she never even, like, she just dealt with it. And, you know, I couldn't be around the kids when they were screaming or crying. I couldn't teach them how to ride bikes because I couldn't run beside the bike. I couldn't push them on a swing set. I couldn't jump on a trampoline. Like, you wonder why I was losing my mind. And, you know, in a short amount of time, I got back to like operating at a really high capacity. And I feel like in certain aspects, I'm elevated from where I have ever been right now. And especially on the spiritual realm and being able to connect to things higher than myself.
Right.
Yeah.
So you've triggered a story that I'd love to share, and I'm not going to share the details because
Samantha.
well, it's not, part of it isn't my story to tell because I'm protecting other individuals by not sharing their story until they're ready to. So I'm going to leave that there. But I was getting my degree in psychology at Sonoma State, 2012. I was in an intro to counseling class, and this intro to counseling class was not your normal class. We would meet, and all of the chairs were around the outside, the perimeter of the classroom, so we were all facing the center. We came home from Thanksgiving break, and we went around the circle doing check-ins. How was your Thanksgiving? And everyone's like, well, we ate turkey, and Mom was great. My dad's still kind of an alcoholic, but it's okay. And there were all these like really fun, fluffy, like maybe some minor disharmony or something going on. And it got around to me, and what had happened over my Thanksgiving break literally shattered the foundation that I so strongly believed would never falter. And my heart started pounding. She got to me, I couldn't even start speaking before I burst into tears in front of a room full of people. And this is the first time that this had ever happened to me in this way. And I could just like barely blurt out what had happened because I knew that I had to do some sort of processing around it because it fucked me up, to be honest, for a while. And we did what she called a fishbowl session. So my professor, who was a psychologist for, like 20, 30 something years, brought me and her into the middle, the center of the classroom, the center of the circle. Basically, she did a spotlight counseling session on me. So 1, to help me, and 2, to show the students how to deal with emotions and basically how to deal with this circumstance, a situation.
Right.
And I just spilled my guts. I spilled everything, and I didn't know there was still emotion because I'm like, we're getting ready to cry about it right now. But I couldn't hold back. And I knew that for my own health and my own healing, I needed to take full advantage of this opportunity because I didn't know when I was going to have another opportunity to talk to somebody that was a professional that could actually help me with what had happened. And it was so weird because when it happened, it was like nobody was in the room but me and her. And I just had to share with her. And so this was at the beginning of a semester. And I remembered after that, of course, I'm shaking. My eyes are swollen and puffy. I'm still like barely able to just breathe because I was crying so much. And what shifted in that classroom about people's willingness to dive deep, like it all of a sudden popped this top open for everybody's healing and for everybody's greater good. And so I started to see, like, that was my biggest lesson in vulnerability. And like you're saying, if I have to be the warrior to put my heart out there first to say, like, this is it, that is what I stand behind in every moment, that is one of my greatest strengths. That is one of the things that I am willing to do because I know the strength and vulnerability as almost like a self-sacrifice for the good of the healing of a group of people. And it's interesting because there's a balance between oversharing and vulnerability because when you get into like group healing or group counseling and there's like the oversharer that's like, whoa, and you're just like, whoa, like I feel like that was just like a blur rather than being able to be vulnerable in your emotions, to be vulnerable in your experience, to actually be seen, to not be the victim of circumstance of this is what happened to me, but to be seen in this is what I'm going through is like, that to me, there's extraordinary admirable strength in it that I think is like, yeah, I think it's incredible.
I think that that's beautiful. Thanks for sharing. And I think that when you open and are honest and your heart's exposed, I feel like it gives everyone else permission. And I think that that's what you did. And I think that's what you always do. It's why people probably talk to you. My wife's the same way. It's like people tell her all of their problems like all the time because she's non-judging and she's just open and available. And that's a beautiful gift to have, is for people to be able to share with you and not be afraid to, that they'll judge you. And, you can imagine how many men have come forward to me as they hear my story and just said, brother, like, thank you. Like, I need to learn how to do that, and my brother who's in the Army and just got back needs to know how to do that. And my son who's in the Army. And like, there's a lot of relation with my sports and these people that come back from war and the PTSD and things, is where like, you've had to become somebody else for like 24 hours a day for a long time. And then it's hard to get back to like who your heart and who you really are. And I see myself working a lot with those people in the future. I haven't developed a specific program for them, but I know in my heart that that's going to happen. And a lot of what I teach my guys will work really nicely with that. So, but yeah, thank you for the vulnerability thing, because I 100% what you're
saying. It's a big deal. Just like being willing to step forward and not, for me, it was for myself. Like, I had to do it for myself because I wouldn't say that was one of my rock bottoms, but it was pretty, as far as my healing journey, it's one of those moments that was a significant turning point. Not even the event that happened before, but the event of being in that classroom and what I learned from that experience was something that like significantly changed the trajectory of what I knew I was capable of doing.
Like, what would our world look like if everyone just like stopped pretending and just were honest that we all struggle and we're all not perfect and we're all a little bit broken? And I mean, it reminds me of this event I did when I was in India, and I was with probably 150 of the biggest, brightest, wealthiest minds in the world as part of the special group. And the instructor asked us to write our deepest, darkest secrets that nobody knew about us and put it in this bowl. Mm-hmm. We were seated to stand up in front of the group and read each one aloud. And they were anonymous. I'm sitting beside people worth $1 billion or 400 million or whatever, right? It didn't matter the dollar amount. Some of the most successful doctors, lawyers, whatever. We all walks of life, all different parts of the world. And he's reading these out loud. And it was like shocking. Like, we're all like, what? And then he's like, he was really funny. He said, well, I feel way better about myself after reading how fucked up you guys are. But the point of it was if we're in the so-called top 1%ers in the world, as far as like income and job and all these sort of so-called stereotypical things, but there's some very special people in that room. If they're all hurting and broken and struggling and in pain, and like there's no separation. There's no separation between the homeless guy on the street and the billionaire that isn't happy and wants to kill himself. There's zero. It's like the homeless guy might be happier.
Oh yeah, I feel like pain has nothing to do with money.
No, but it was the fact that we all just like were brutally honest, and as soon as he read that, the like room just kind of like went, oh, like opened up, and like everyone's like, I love you, man. I love you too. It's like, it was so funny because it was like the elephant was in the room, it was open, everything went, okay, it's not just me. And when people understand that they don't have to pretend anymore and that it doesn't have to be a charade and that they can actually open and share, that's when all the healing and all the love starts. And I don't want to go on the extreme side because we're on a nice level there, but there are other people that live in their story too. And, I think that it's okay to share the story and to work through the story, but when the story becomes a way for you to connect and get attention and feel love, and then people get addicted to that story, I think that that's a scary spot too. So
I agree. I was just in yoga before connecting here. It's something that I love to do. And there's one particular teacher, one particular class that I do my best not to miss. And today she had us doing like the gnarliest hip openers, like really gnarly. And I'm pretty flexible, but I was in this pose so brutally uncomfortable and just like trying to breathe through it, but the pain was like so intense, and I'm like like not doing my regular yoga breathing. And I just like, there was something that clicked in my head that was like, Samantha, you are not your pain. Your pain is not your story. And I just started like, as an affirmation, started breathing through it and was able to relax so much deeper. And I watched the energy just like, almost like a deflated balloon, just like, just soar right out of my hip where I was experiencing the pain. And it was so refreshing, and I don't even know like where it came from. It was just some sort of internal piece that knocked it off, maybe probably so that I could share it here. But it was really powerful, and it brought just so much more ease to such an extraordinarily uncomfortable pose. But I take those experiences of like the discomfort in a yoga pose, and I go to the discomfort of a client session, or the discomfort of an awkward conversation, or the discomfort of sitting with somebody else in their pain, knowing that in every single moment we have the power to diffuse whatever it is, whether it's a story that we've emotionally attached ourselves to or something else. It's like there's so much that can be opened up, and it literally just has to do with intention. If you have the intention to open it up, all pain can like turn into a lotus flower. All pain can turn into a learning experience. All pain can also turn into, like you're saying, your own journey to now help other people.
Yeah.
I know that my pain has made me qualified to help other people, because without it, I wouldn't know how to tell somebody or show somebody the way out.
It's funny because that's what we were talking about with my wife and her friend today. And I said, if I didn't suffer with depression, I wouldn't be able to coach somebody through depression. You could try, and textbooks might tell you, okay, this and that, but if you don't know what it's like, unless you can't tell somebody to climb Everest if you haven't climbed Everest.
Yeah.
It's like, so like, I looked at my range of emotions from the best in the world and playing in the best league in the world and getting all the things that come along with that, to going through hell and being stuck there and not knowing if I'd ever get out. And then coming through the tunnel, I ran the whole gamut. And I really feel like I have a compassion for people that are suffering. And I've fought my way out, and I've figured my way out, and I've prayed my way out, and I've got some stuff that I need to help people with and share with people. And I wouldn't be able to do it if I didn't have the contrast. So at the time, I'm like, why is this happening to me? And as I've developed, I'm like, oh, thank you, God, for that. If you didn't do that, I wouldn't understand this, and I wouldn't feel this. Like, I wouldn't know what these people that I'm dealing with felt or feel. And I know that you're on the same page as me with this, because I know we've both been through stuff. And I think it gives you a really nice perspective to come at from different angles, because we've felt so many different crazy things, you know?
Yeah.
So.
You know what's interesting though? I was just talking to a friend about this the other day, is that as a medium, I have people come to me that are interested in healing, and they're interested in receiving final messages, or they're interested in finding closure, or they want to know that their loved one is okay. And through that is an extraordinary amount of grief. Now, what's interesting for me is that, knock on wood, I have had loved ones pass away. I've had, grandparents or people that I've cared about pass away, but it's never been anybody that has been in my direct inner circle. And the people that come to me, they've like lost their father, or they've lost their husband, or they've lost their fiance. And the pain is so immense and so great that it's one of those pains that I haven't felt, that I haven't experienced. And I still like taking your example to heart, because I've wondered about that. Like, how is it that I am getting sent these people when I don't know the path, but I do know what grief feels like? I do know what abandonment feels like. I do know what rejection feels like. And death, in a sense, is the ultimate abandonment. It's like gone.
Right.
All of a sudden, that person is gone. I don't know if you've ever had anyone cut you out of their lives, but there's like a very specific sort of experience with death and full on like disownment. And those two things, like when I'm working with somebody through the grief process of losing somebody, that's my experience of what I go to, is like the disownment grief of being fully and completely rejected. That's the pain that I know. And that's a pain that I know how to get to help somebody out of it. And at the same time, it's almost a little bit easier because it's final. Death is final. There isn't no like, okay, well, maybe they'll change their mind. And it's like this interesting, I don't know. It's really interesting energy to work through and to look through and to kind of sort through, in so many ways. And it's still part of my work that I'm looking at figuring out, because I'm absolutely fascinated with death. And in fact, my office, it's on the third story of a building, and literally right across the street in downtown Reno, I'm right across the street from a crematorium. So we see the crematorium plumes. We know when they're burning a body because the smoke changes color. And so I just like that as a medium, as a person that communicates with beings on the other side, I'm also just centered in the spot across from a funeral home and a crematorium.
I don't want to laugh,
but it's kind of funny. It's like so ironic that what else do you do?
Right. I mean, on a similar note, I was in Varanasi, India, and they cremate the bodies on the river before, like after they die. So I'm literally walking down the street, and there's like dead bodies being wheeled right beside me, right? And I'm like you. I've lost grandparents and things like that, but as far as like anybody real close, I haven't. And my wife just recently lost her father, and I felt helpless, and I didn't know what to do at all. And I actually called one of my coaches, and she's actually grief, like she's got her grief certificate or whatever, like she handles a lot of grief. So she gave us some amazing advice. But one of the things that she said was let them work through it. Everybody handles it differently. And, they need to work through the grief on their own. And all we can do is like really support. She didn't give me any great words of wisdom or pearls that I can share, but that was like all that she could really say. And I just tried to make the life with everything around the funeral and before and all that as simple as I possibly could, so they could the family could focus on the grieving. And I mean, I don't know if anybody out there has any great advice for grief counseling. I'm all ears, because it's never easy, and it's one of the things that I'm still learning about as well. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, it's interesting because grief isn't an emotion. It's like an experience that evokes emotion. Because I don't know if like grieving is almost like a process, but you wouldn't say like I'm happying or I'm sadding. Like you would say I'm grieving. And so it's, I don't know. I just feel I'm still young. And so I feel like it's still something that I'm learning to experience. And still at the same time, I have such a different perspective on what death is than I'd say a mass majority of our population. That for me, loss of the physical touch or that physicality is there, but at the same time, like death is not the end as far as I'm concerned. It's a transition, but it's not that you'll never connect with that person again, because and what I have seen is that you will, and you will over lifetimes, and you will in between lives, and like that person is never gone, but it's just that they're on their experience or they're on their journey that is so far beyond what we understand or know of consciously until I guess we start exploring it.
Oh, interesting. It's funny because you and I were talking earlier about some stuff, and we both had some experiences with some pretty crazy stuff. And I'm not going to get into it here. There's not enough time, but
pull in the time card, Dave.
but that if we get to go where I know that we get to go, there's nothing but love, and all the weight is gone, and all the burden, and all the worry, and all the doubt is gone and lifted, and we're free, and there's no heaviness, there's no gravity. We can breathe as deep and as long as we want to breathe, and we can let go of anything that ever was weighing us down. And I'm certain that that's where we're going to get to go, and there's nothing to worry about up there. And I know that people can say, well, how do you know, what's all this and all that? But it's a long story, but I'm blessed to have got to see and be a part of some pretty amazing things, and I'm certain about it. So, it gives me peace knowing that if that is what we go to next, I'm okay with that. And what we're dealing with down here is it's a lot heavier than we realize when we get to see what's up there. So we're all warriors for dealing with what's down here.
That is exactly why I am determined to have as much fun as I possibly can.
Amen.
And to me, years ago, that meant for me to get as drunk as I possibly could. For now, my idea of fun has completely changed, which means I have fun doing these interviews. I have fun teaching classes. I have fun not breaking people down, but helping people who are willing to break themselves down into transformation. And it's so incredibly beautiful. But knowing what it is that you're talking about and having experienced my own version of it myself, it's like, how do all these other things exist? The worry, the pain, the fear, the doubt, the insecurities, it's like none of that is real. And I know we're like totally coming right up on the edge of time here.
No, we can't stop. This is what we signed up for right now.
I know.
We're going to talk about what's real.
It's so good. And it is. To me, what is real is the expression of your heart. It's not the thoughts in your head. It's not the color of your hair. It's the expression in your heart. And if the expression in your heart is littered in pain and littered in trauma, then we can clean it up. And that, like, nobody has to experience that alone. The cleanup process is not meant for us to experience as individuals. Rather, it's meant for us to experience together so that we can continue to learn and grow in community. Hence the vulnerability piece. If one person is vulnerable and steps forward and says, this is my truth, this is how messed up my life is, you ask me how I'm doing, I'm not doing well. And that opens people up into being able to experience something so much more real and so much more raw, and like the essence, the goodness, the ooey gooey goodness that is messy and gross and disgusting and beautiful and like so exhilarating all at the same time. But if we could just like shift our perspective a little bit to be able to love every single expression. And I feel like it's your wife just popped into my head. And I want to say, because you mentioned that she's so open and that people come to her and just want to share their stories. And when I met you, I met both of you together, and there was something so beautiful about your union and beautiful about the connection that you share, because as an empath, like relationship status, something that like sometimes I wish I didn't feel, but I oftentimes do. And I feel like there's just something so forgiving and compassionate about her nature, just as who she be, and also listening to the rock that she was for you and going through everything that you went through. And I'm sure I mean, having a conversation with her would be a whole nother experience of the other side of what it's like to be in a marriage, to be committed, to say, yes, I'm going through this. This is the no matter what. This is the from, up and down. And Dave, your tears they're contagious. I'm feeling them. But it's so beautiful. And so I guess my point is I just want to thank for just being the essence of who you be. And it's funny because I only met her that one time, and I feel like she left such an incredible imprint on me. I feel like you both did, but there's just something that's so beautiful about the two of you. So whether she knows it or not, I consider her a friend of mine, as I do with you. But so yes, thank you for all that you do, and I'm sure you have something to add to that. And can you also tell us about how people can get in touch with you as far as working with you as a coach or a mentor or in whatever capacity it is that you're offering?
Sure. Well, thank you for all those kind words. And, I told my wife the first time I met you, I said, that girl is really special. I said, there's something different about her. And I felt you. I felt what you stood for. And I felt like, and I knew, I literally said, you're going to be a rock star. I don't know, like the very first time I said, you're going to be a rock star and you're going to kick some ass. And every time that you have a win, I celebrate with you and or for you. And no, you deserve all the goodness that you're getting now, and I feel like your heightened awareness is taking you to new places, and I know all your clients are going to be better for it. And one last thing, like I was thinking as you were talking, and we're talking about what's real, and I guess like one thing for people to ask themselves the next time they're going through something is this real? Is the sky going to fall down and I'm going to die today if this doesn't happen for me? Or is there another way to do this? Or is this as big a deal as I'm making it to be, right? And I truly believe that a lot of what we do to ourselves, like it's not the way God made us. God made us to be playful and fun and adventurous and in wonder and in awe of everything. He didn't want us to be stressed and nervous and anxious and scared and fearful, right? So if that's not godly, then what is it? What is it, right? Why are we letting that in our lives? Like there's a way to live where you can laugh at fear and you can rip fear's head off and you can move past it. And I'm still learning too. And I think for everyone out there that has struggled, as we all have, just something to keep in the back of your mind that like, it's never as big or as bad as it feels at the time. And usually there's a lesson behind it. Usually it's a gift. Mm-hmm. It might not seem like a gift at the time. It might take a couple of years later and go, wow, I didn't realize if that didn't happen, then this wouldn't happen. And this, and like, the butterfly effect. So, just don't ask yourself how real what your situation is that you're going through is, because we all have our stuff, but, there's a good chance that we're making it a little bit bigger than it has to be. And as it gets smaller, it gets easier to manage and handle and deal with and think about. So that just kind of popped into my head, and I just thought I'd share that. But
yeah, you mean our society's addicted to drama? Weird. I wonder why. How did that happen?
Right. Yeah. And I'm raising 3 little kids in this, trying to navigate it,
Yeah. I luckily have not jumped on board that ship yet, and we'll just see what happens. Probably call you and say, Dave, I don't know what to do with this fork. Help me.
That's right. You can come babysit and try it out. See how it works.
Well, I have small siblings, so there's like a 13-year age gap between me and 3 of my siblings. So I was like, I think that was birth control enough.
There you go.
Yeah. So how can everybody that's watching get a hold of you or get connected with you if they have any sort of idea or reference of anyone that would value working with you?
You know what? There's a few different ways, but maybe the easiest would be I'll give you an email. It's just Dave, DAVE, at HockeyStarsSecrets.com. And that's HockeyStarsSecrets.com. And, there's Dave Scatcherd Coaching on Facebook is a page that I just started as well. So, there's some fun videos and some easy things for people to just, get to know me better. And, I don't just deal with athletes. I deal with people, and I'm a people person, and that's where my love and my passion is. And, I've been through it and I've done my training, and I think between the combination of my life experiences and my life coaching certification, I feel like I'm very well equipped to handle almost any situation. So I'd love to hear from you guys, and if not, stick with Sam. She's a rock star, and she's going to take you to higher and higher places. So thank you for having me on today, and hopefully we can do part 2 on my side, and we can flip.
I would love that. I would love that. And what I do want to say is that I am having an event come up. It is a big event. It is it's really exciting. I've been designing the workbook. I've got the whole itinerary. I've got our classes all dialed in. It's going to be a 3-day super transformative event. I know that Christine, who you know, is going to be there. Shauna, who I did the first interview with, she's also going to be there, and she's going to do a session. She's going to teach a session on medical intuition, because she has the gift of a medical intuitive, which is not my specialty. And so for you and your wife are absolutely more than invited to come. It is August 24th, 25th, and 26th here in Reno, Nevada. I'm going to be also offering the debut of my psychic development program, but we are going to use that 3-day event to really do some deep diving in person, because when that many magical, intuitive people get together all in one room, holy moly, the energy amplifies and magnifies in ways that we can't even predict, even as psychics.
I can feel it already. I can.
I had a dream last night that it was completely sold out with standing room, and there was probably like 25 people all standing as well. So now I have this beautiful vision, this beautiful memory of what is going to happen. So I'm putting it all in there that it is a full and beautiful event. So,
well, I'll do everything I can to get there. I'm going to bring my wife. I want to see everyone that watches this video come. We want to sell this thing out. Samantha knows what she's talking about. Okay, she's not. This girl is dialed in. So if you want to fast track and get in the slipstream, sign up now. Okay.
Yes. I'll put the event link in the comments. It's on all the other videos that I've done too. So.
Okay. Very cool.
Yeah. Well, Dave, thank you so much for spilling your guts and taking out your armor and showing us a little bit more of who you truly be. And I, for one, am absolutely honored to be able to call you a friend of mine. And I can't wait till the next time I get to see you. And hopefully, yes, your beautiful wife is there too, so I can hug her too.
Oh, you want to? Somebody wants me to say "about" again. That must be my Canadian. I'm Canadian. I'm sorry, but I don't apologize. I don't. I love being Canadian. But anybody that comes to the event is going to get to hear me say "about" and "sorry" and all my other Canadian words over and over and over again for 3 days. So come see Sam's event. And Sam, Samantha, thank you for having me on. I'm honored, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you got going next. And hopefully we can do an interview on the flip side and give the part 2 to everybody else. So
absolutely.
Thanks everyone for tuning in, and see you next time.
All right. Ciao, ciao. Let me see if I know how to turn this off here. All right, there we go. Is it working?
I don't know.
Are we still live?